Forgetting the crime, forgetting the horrible of the history is a crime itself. So which means that we should not forget. The best practice, I think, that is depend on individual, because when it come down to genocide and mass atrocities and slaughter, the closure is very personal. So there's no single best practice per se. As a society, the best practice is to confront the mistake of the past, to understand the mistake of the past. That's for the society. Otherwise, the society cannot leave the transition. There's no ending. But for individual level, it's dependent on who you are. I was a little boy when I was suffered. My mother, much older woman. My sister, young married couple. My uncle was a single man. So the way we bring closure to ourselves is different practice. One thing in common, I think, that we should not be obsessed by the past. Rather than give so much freedom to the present, also to learn from the past. It's the best practice. I'm speaking this from young Cambodian experience, that whom all of us consist of 15 million, either children of the victim or perpetrator today in Cambodia. So it's very great, and you don't want this kid to be obsessed the way we've been through, but yet they have to understand the history of their parents. That would be the best practice through education. So in Cambodia, we teach children from grade 7 to 12 as compulsory, also foundation year in all universities in the country, and open for a public debate. And that's the best practice. That also contribute to individual level who suffer from the past experience. Because we have been through this for 39 years in Cambodia, so we have tried many practice. But all these practice that I mentioned that can work, only justice discovered. When we first, after the fall of the Khmer rules in 79, and I became a refugee living in Bataan myself. I left home, we flee the country. So we try many process. We try education, we try reconciliation, we try negotiation, we try remembrance. It's not working. Only recently, after we have tried, So justice is always the foundation of best practice. If you don't have justice, then there's no best practice. That's speaking from Cambodia of 35 years of experience. Try to bring a closure to a crimes of genocide that took place 40 years ago. We all have to move on. No one should try to locate a space to live with the past, or with the horrible history. But yet at the same time, it's with us, it's present. It's not like ancient history, it's present, it's contemporary. It's human rights violation, it's killings, it's tortures, and that's present time. So I think that it's required both the state and individual level, community to work together. There's different responsibility. First of all, maybe at the state level must be a policy that address this at the national level. A policy that require every high school teaching the mistake of the past. A policy that address the trauma, allocate sufficient resources to treat victims of the past atrocity, for example. Cambodian history is very complex because Cambodian killing Cambodian is not the Chinese killing Cambodian or the Vietnamese killing the Chinese. It's about Cambodian killing Cambodian. So it's very gray. imagine the complexity of our history itself. So what you did is that the way we come about with education, we produce a very basic historical facts that no one can deny or object. For example, the deaths of 2.2 million people, the 20,000 mass grave, the starvation, the suffering of the peoples. But each of these historical facts can be a foundation for a classroom debate. So that it comes down to methodology, comes down to training teacher how to guide or facilitate the dialogue in the classroom. So, you warm them up as they were 12, 14, 13, 15, as they graduate from high school. Then they carry the sufficient knowledge so that the knowledge keep growing each year that they pass third grade. I want young people in Cambodia to go to the shopping mall, listen to the videos, live it freely without having to be pushed to recognize how the elder will suffer. But when they're in classroom, they have to read book. They have to read the history book. They have to take the exam. Otherwise, they will fail their high school. It's not about stories and history that you have to learn. So I think that way you give a balance to the younger to grow, to move, but yet to recognize and learn from the past mistake that what he has been through, which contribute to their future. So in Cambodia, when you ask young people, you interested? It doesn't matter interested or not, but when you go to the classroom, when you start grade 7, you read the textbook. And that is the government responsibility to produce a fair and just balanced textbook for your young population to learn. And that itself, having this as compulsory at the state level, this impact is huge because this is a formal classroom where you discuss human rights violation, which is the most basic principle of human rights you can give to the young population. So as they grow older, they have this one foundation. They can pursue further laws, governments, managements, and so forth. So we did this actually not long ago, and that because we have tried a way to move on to forget, or we live with the past. So we have experimented the process of try to forget. We have experiment that we have to live with the past until you have to pay back all the crap what you did to me. That's not working. So this is start to work, and I still leave this open to other possibility. I'm not limited to education. That may be other possibility that people may rediscover based on cultural context, religious, geography, and how crime took place in that particular part of the world. For example, in case of Cambodia, we're very Buddhist, most of them are very Buddhist. And there is a belief that among the elder that the crime would be punished when you reborn. But it gives so much of passiveness to the current situation where people are also facing new challenges on a daily basis as well. So in such a situation, what would you do? How you address this issue as a nation, which you have divided population. In case of Cambodia, we also have people who left the country like myself. Yeah. People who were in the country that never left the country, and people who were at the border and returned during the UNTAC election as well. So countries were divided. But justice is the only process that brings us together. Why? Because we are human beings. One thing that we can share in common is justice issue. Only that began with the tribunal. That's why we become a little bit of integration and try to work together. It's not ended at the tribunal in case of Cambodia. It's not ended at the textbooks. It's a struggle. It's not about the long road or difficult road, or it's not about meaning that you travel on the road to justice. It's about each of us has sufficient knowledge and understanding and to address this as a contemporary issue. We're still limited in Cambodia, and before we began to teach this in high school, millions have left high school already. And they are made up of 70% of the population. So there's a risk that they could be repeated. So for that reason, to respond to your question is that we're still struggling, even though we came to this far. I think one of the points that you don't have to stop. If you stop, then you would be taken over by the criminalities, by the abuse, by the oppression. So you have to struggling and compete, the same way, the same roles, and never stop. There's only way to survive in the most civilized society that human rights dialogue cannot be stopped. It must be addressed always. That's the only way that you can ensure that at any scale of human rights violation can be minimized or limited or even prevented. It had to be internally driven, not externally motivated. So, in case of Burma, I've been working with them for a long, long time because our neighbor. We are in ASEAN country, so I have close, dear to my heart. But then, we have one biggest problem among ourselves. We tend to let things collapse before we learn. Despite of that's why I never use the word lesson learned. I use the word mistake. You make mistake and then you learn from it. We like to be cheer ups with good words. We like to be appreciated. But look, in the real life, if you make mistake, you go to jail, and then we will forgive you. But I think that I respect their approach because I'm not in the systems. But we have to find commonality among ourselves when it comes to human rights violation, when it comes to abuse. Must be something in common. We want justice. And how would you approach this justice? How would you bring a solution to justice? And that's something that we should listen to each other. I usually, because of my expertise, I highly recommend in terms of preservation of the archive, of the documentation, not to for the future, because without all these resources, I'm not so sure you have this in the Philippines, like a place with all of the in the last 50 years of all the mistakes that took place in the Philippines that like restore us as the archive for younger Filipino or young Filipino historian to really understand, so that it can be a lesson that contribute to the improvement in the future of the Philippines, for example. So those are some of my expertise: database, archive, investigation. But the purpose is not to inflict harm to the society, but to be more healthier by learning from the mistake, which is very difficult sometimes. But in case of Cambodia, you learn about people kill each other, how people lie to each other, why people lie to each other, how people were pointing finger at each other, and happen to be your neighbor, your teachers, sometimes your friends, sometimes your cousin. It's a difficult lesson. But if we don't face this, then they will be repeated. And we all agree that if we don't learn from the past, then they will be repeated. We just stop it out. But I grew up in the Vietnam War, and I'm the youngest son in the family. I have high expectations from my parents to look after me. But because I'm a young boy and I have a lot of sisters, and all attention paid to my sister. Maybe I grew up with jealousies, with lack of attention. So I began to make my own toys, my own kite. I grow plants by myself. I invented things so that they become my toys. So I was prepared to be independent at early year, as it was 6 or 7 years old. So, but one thing that it's driven me is competition. When I was a young boy, I always study 1 year ahead before I start a new semester. So when I start a semester, I do all the lessons. So I study in another private school another year ahead of it. I think because maybe I want attention, maybe from my moms. This is, again, it's all about my mothers, because I'm 57 years old now. since I was a child, I spent less time with my mothers. My mother now is 92 years old, and we don't talk to each other in the same house, so we don't, nothing to talk about. It's broken. It's beyond repair. You know, as a young child in the family, you wanted so much to be with your moms. But every time there's always war, genocide, invasion, foreign occupation, refugee. Then, you know, there's a point that you resign to be close, and you're happy to be apart. Sometimes reconciliation is very complex. Love also is very complex. To love, you don't have to be together. So with my mother, I love her from the bottom of my heart. But I don't have to be with her anymore. And that perhaps because of that, it driven me to be the best sons. To be the best son, to be someone that she will be proud of. You know, I wish that I can do this to all the Filipino mothers. I regard the Philippines as my homes, as heaven when I first arrived in '86 as a refugee. I think that at the end of the day, I just want my mother to have fruits, time to go to the church, have air conditioning when it's hot, have all basic needs. And she does now. So for me, that indicates success of my career. And I would love to have all the mothers in the Philippines who present basic needs as such, you know, can take grandchildren to go to school. If she wants to go to church, she has time for it. You know, after all this year, one question that I have asked, and I ask every day, why such a basic need for every mother that could not obtain? Why this basic need being rejected, oppressed, destroyed, or harmful, or even persecution? And that's driven me to do more, and that led me to this. You know, I start with this work for my mothers. I'm not a person with humanity, with universal, you know. I have a mixed feeling coming here, to be honestly. Rather than excited, I kind of homesick. This morning I opened the window. I couldn't differentiate between the sky and the ocean because in the morning it looked the same. Only I identify a small boat in between, and that's me. So I'm between the Philippines and Cambodia, and I wish all the mother would look the same to me, like the sky and the ocean, you know, in front of the Diamond Hotel. So for me, it's a question why human basic need has been denied and destroyed, and this is a gift from God. It belongs to us, and why someone has the power to take it away from us, leave us vulnerable and suffer for so many decades. I think that bring your child close to you, protect your family, and don't give it up. It belongs to you. You own it. It's a gift from God to you, so you must protect it. And if you stop it, then you will be demolished. You have to continue. It will be a difficult journey for them, but I think that you have friends. You have lessons to learn, and you still can embrace now. I think it's a difficult lesson. I think that for the young people, love their mothers dearly and protect her from being harmed by any others. It's your mothers. I come to this far because someone threatening my mothers. Did not even harm my mother. When the Khmer was threatening my mothers, I came to all this way, all the way to this point. So, love your mother. You will understand and want it to do.